you so much for joining us back. This is our second adult summer reading project, and today we are doing Voodoo watercolors. And this project is fun, but mostly we're just playing with the effects of the paint. I wanted it to look like a shadow. A hand out of the shadows is coming through and playing with the magic in our world. Watercolors can be tricky because the water paints with you, and it's one of my absolute favorite things about them. But you do have to be able to take a deep breath and understand that you are painting with the water. And what I mean by that is that the water may or may not change your intended effect, and you just kind of have to go with it. So our first step is going to be to paint our background first, and I'm first going to give it just a clear coating of water. I know it's in the name, but you do need more water and not less water to paint with watercolors. And so if you look at my palette, I've been mixing my colors. When you open your case, the back side of it is a palette. And I think I'm gonna make the background on this one be orange. And so when I start brushing, there we go. The advantage of having the water all the way already down is that when I start brushing my paint on, I already know that I have enough water on my brush and on my paper. There we go. If I start running out of paint, because I am over there getting a little low on pigment, I'm going to a little bit of pigment, a little bit of water. If you want your colors to be darker or brighter, you do still need quite a bit of water, but you are going to also use just more pigment. In this instance, I'm going to make the top of it darker, but there we go, but the bottom of it lighter. There we go. And the same for over here. I'm going to brush my water on first. And then get my pigmented water. I'm going to try the same effect, so I'm going to go all over with the very lightly pigmented water. And then I'm going to get some more color and a little more water. And I'll go back on the part that I want to be darker. There we go. Oops. So do you see how this brushstroke didn't spread? That actually does tell me that that spot didn't have enough water. And I'm gonna even it through a little bit. And so I am getting, if you look at the very corners here, and I'll add a little bit more just so you can see, I am getting a little, almost line of water at the end. And so to fix that, I'm going to grab a paper towel, set it down, and I'm just going to touch my painting. I don't want to touch the paper towel to the painting. I want to touch the painting to the paper towel because I only want it to pick up that extra pigment. There we go. So my next step is going to be to let this dry 100%. And so I'm going to wipe a little extra paint that I got just on the hand. And the hands are vinyl, so they won't at all paint with watercolors in the same way that shadows have depth and they don't change color unless exposed to light. Here, the vinyl won't paint. And so I'm gonna let this dry all the way, and then I'm gonna come back and we're going to, in this space, this is going to be our magic. And so we're gonna think about what color it's gonna be, and then we will paint it on. Okay, so I gave this plenty of time to dry. And I have this example right here. And I had started to do this in green, but if you notice this spot right here, that was me touching it to check and see if it was dry, and it did not work. Remember, I did say that watercolors paint with you, and part of what that means is they can be slightly temperamental, and if they are drying, you need to leave them alone. They are not like oils or even acrylics that you can adjust really easily. So this is my middle, right? And I've already painted this down in just water. And I started my coat down here. And so this one is the part where we are creating our magic, right? And so what I'm doing right now is I'm taking my paintbrush, dipping it in my color that I've already watered down, and just dropping it in because it spreads. And then I can dip it in a little bit of water and I can push it through. There we go. And I'm actually working with several colors right now. I have this kind of pinkish color, this reddish color, and a little bit of water. There we go. And for this part, I am using quite a bit of water, and I do understand that, but part of this reason is that when I start salting it, which is our next step, is you're going to use the salt on it, I need the paint to be wet. And again, when you are finished with this step and the salt is on it, it is super important to leave it alone and let it dry. It will take a while. You may want to touch it, but you've got to just give it a second. So I'm going to get darker as we keep going. There we go. And I like this effect of the colors. I want it to look like it's getting more or stronger as it's moving away from the hand. And I want to blend it a little bit, so I'm going to take a little bit of this red and get it through the darker color. And then I'm going to take a tiny bit of that darker color and get it just back a little bit. There we go. Into the red, so they blend well as we're blending them through. There we go. And then my darkest color is going to be here on the edge. And in this instance, my shadow, I don't know what we're working with. Fire, maybe? Trying to think of things that are super dark red. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, hopefully, there is, even like this whole line at the end, right? There's a ton of water on here. My paint is super, super wet. And there we go. My next step is going to be a little bit of salt. And I'm going to pinch it and think of what direction you want this effect to go in. I'm starting at my hand and moving out, and back at my hand and moving out, and there we go. And you only need a tiny bit. Out of all of that, I used like a pinch of it. I'm also going to pick this up really gently. Remember, tap it to the end and tap it. There we go. Get a little bit of that extra liquid off the sides. And so here Oops. Got it right back in a pool of water. There we go. 100% next step is to leave it alone. Leave it alone, leave it alone, give it a second. If you look at the effect it's creating, it's drawing some of the color back, and you like it, you can add a little bit more. The other thing you can do is, if you see like right here I'm losing some of my pigment, I can tap some water to it and put a little more pigment there. It's not going to blend as well. Watercolors there we go. And then if I really want to, I can say, well, I lost the salt that I had there, so I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more. There we go. And give it a second. This needs to dry all the way. But while this one's drying, I'm going to set it aside. I can show you just a quick example I had earlier. I'm going to scratch all of this salt off. It's dried and it's just water. So I can scratch the salt. There we go. And so if you can see here, the salt drew some of the paint away in spaces, and so it makes it look like it's active, or like it sparkles, or like it's moving and changing and dynamic. And that was just my rough test this morning. So right now I'm looking at this. I think I want a little bit more. And then the one mistake I made on that one is I had my salt too thick in a few places. You want to sprinkle it just in this thin like sprinkle. You don't want to dump it in any one place. So we're going to give this plenty of time to dry. I'm probably going to give it at least an hour, and then I will come back and brush the sand off and we can see it. Alright, so this has had plenty of time to dry. So this is the effect. It pulls some of the paint up and lightens it in places so it's darker than others, and it creates, in my opinion at least, this really like dynamic effect. I've used this before painting a universe or a starry sky, and it has the same like beautiful color seeping almost effect on the paper. And so here is my shadow hand, and this is our art project. Have a great week.